What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Coffee with Colin. It is Wednesday. Yes, it is Wednesday. You may be asking, well, Colin, it's Wednesday. What are you doing Coffee with Colin on a Wednesday? Normally you do it on a Monday. Now, that doesn't matter for the rest of you who watch the show afterwards. But, for sometimes, occasionally, we do this for special guests out there. And for tonight, we've got a special guest that I'm excited to be bringing to you tonight because this guy is someone who I've just had the brief pleasure of speaking with for a little bit. But this guy is incredibly inspiring, and this show is all about inspiring you to be your best. And on this show, I love to ask my guests all about what it took for them to aspire and achieve their goals and their dreams. And this guy is on his way and has made it on the top stages of the world in Hollywood and around the world. And you may know him from several movies. One of my favorite movies, Ford versus Ferrari, which I can't wait to ask him about. And he's won a ton of awards. So I'm super jealous that he's won acting awards for his talent. Not only is he talented, he's incredibly handsome, incredibly charming. The guy looks like Superman. I think he's probably in line to play the next Superman. He studied acting at Carnegie Mellon University. So I'm excited to be chatting with him about that, what it was like, what that experience was like. He's from Germany, and he's come all the way virtually through the internet into your living room, ladies and gentlemen. Very special, very, very, very special evening for us to be chatting with him tonight. You know him from Pretty Little Liars, of course, the show that ran for 7 seasons on ABC Family. This is probably what you know him best for. And I can't wait to ask him about the show and what he thought of it, what it was like kissing Lucy Hale, of course, the beautiful Lucy Hale. And he's also written a book similar to me. So we've got plenty to talk about. So without further ado, I'm sure you guys are bored of listening to me just blabber on. We're going to bring him to the stage now. So please welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ian Harding.
Oh man,
What's up, Ian?
What an introduction, really. I mean, that's just pretty amazing. And then on top of that, like, I don't know, being brought to the stage, especially this day and age, and when everything is Zoom and via the internet and whatnot, or you're literally sitting in your dining room and you're like,
sitting in the
and now I'm here,
living room, broadcasting with 40,000 watts, through the internet, and here we are.
Wow.
Yeah. So where you mentioned you're in Connecticut right now.
I'm in Connecticut at the moment. Yeah. And just sort of renting a spot and sort of perusing and sort of it's been an interesting thing because I've lived in LA for the past 12 years and I've really loved it, but I was always an East Coast kid. And so we're trying to see where we might want to put down roots and try something different. So,
For all of the ladies out there, they're going to be disappointed because when you say we, you mean
me and my wife.
Your wife, you're married. You just crushed like 4 million girls' hearts.
Yeah, no, it's also, this is the crazy thing, and you know this too, of like when you've done something and you're known for the sort of romantic character and you don't want to let people down, while at the same time, Sophia, my wife, and I, we've been together for the entirety of Pretty Little Liars, literally like the whole run. And so, it's always fun. And Lucy Hale and I always joke about this, that people were like, so was there ever? And it's like, this is especially strange given the context of the relationship on screen, but Lucy so like really feels like a sister. And so you're like, really, a sister that you make out with? That's really, really gross.
I watched a little YouTube clip about you actually describing and talking about that very thing of what it was like to kiss Lucy. And you're like, well, and people ask me about this too. It's like, when you are doing these makeout scenes or sex scenes in movies, is it like, is it romantic? Is it passionate? And it's like, well, if you call having 40 random strangers watching you like take your clothes off and it's essentially choreographed where you're like, okay, is it okay if I put my hand on your left thingy and if I touch you here and we're going to rotate and roll around here, and then it's choreographed. It's very it can be very uncomfortable, and I'm sure it was like with Lucy, someone who you would consider maybe your sister. I've been in that situation where afterwards you're like, yep, okay, that was fun.
Yeah, where it's another form of work, and almost it's like you would have banter that you would around the water cooler at a normal office, except that water cooler is a bed that you're rolling around in and is now covered in the body makeup that both of you were sprayed with to within an inch of your lives. So, or more so me, less so her. I had to get those camera ready abs, and it was all
Spray painted.
Spray paint, of course. There's I was always so flabbergasted when like a lot of several of my other male co-stars like Keegan Allen or Drew Van Acker, who was a legit like Gucci model at one point. And I mean, he has true abdominal characteristics that you would think you could grate cheese on his abdomen.
Abdominal characteristics.
I have the wheel of cheese on my stomach, and that's great. And especially as I've grown older and I like have defined myself as other than an actor. Yeah, you learn to not care as much, and so yeah, it's lovely.
So let's just dive into it. So you've been married for how long? For how many years?
We've been married only for since the end of 2019, and it was hilarious because we thought okay, we're gonna save our honeymoon. 2020, it's gonna be the year of travel. Yeah. And we were wrong. And but we were together. We first got together in 2010, so early 2010.
How'd you meet?
We went to school together, but we didn't date in school. We were just kind of chums and friends. And then she was a year behind me.
This is at Carnegie Mellon?
At Carnegie Mellon. And
okay, so she's an actress as well.
She was, and then she graduated, and she was like, wait a minute, I hate this profession. She's like, she was one of these people that it reminds me of like young athletes or people that show like athletes that show promise at a very young age, is understanding like your loving and adoring parents say like, oh great, we're gonna like streamline you in that. So she went to like a performing arts high school in Miami, and then like went to Carnegie Mellon, but was never given the opportunity to explore other creative outlets. And she always had this knack for photography, but no, it's got to be the play, and we're going to do the next we have the auditions and dance and blah blah.
Yeah.
And then once she got out into LA, and especially in your first year in LA, you're kind of like, what,
seeing the business, going on auditions, it was like, you know what, I'm going to be smart.
Yeah.
I'm going to not do this.
Yeah, she was kind of like, wait, I could do all of these other things. And so she experimented for a while and tried to, and saw like worked with different photographers, and almost was like they're not understudy. What am I saying? They're not like assistant, but kind of, but then could also do her own shoots and create her own lighting and everything. And then really had a knack for it. And she's been, shooting ever since. And in 2019, right? I mean, I think before the pandemic, right before the pandemic, she shot the cover of New York Magazine's The Cut with Lucy Boynton. And it was like a coming full circle. So I'm very grateful that she's not an actress. It's great for self tapes. Actually, no, it's terrible.
Background, why? Because she's like critiquing you and directing you.
She's
and
too good.
Yeah, that was like, you come on, give me something more, Ian. Come on.
She'll shut it off and be like,
yeah,
I don't believe it anymore. I'm like, you know what? I don't believe it either. Can you just put this on tape? Like, I'm supposed to be playing like, what is this role now? An ogre with wings or something? I don't know. And I'm shooting this in our garage. Let me just fake this,
Well,
but
sounds like she's incredibly supportive, and the fact that you've been this heartthrob for as long as you have, for her to be able to go on this amazing ride with you says a lot about who she is. And yeah, I mean, I could see why, just being out there in Hollywood and meeting so many people who actors who date actresses, it's tough because, we have different projects in different parts of the world, and we're gone for weeks on end, and it really can put a strain on your relationship. So the fact that you guys have been able to make it work says a lot about who you are, especially with the sure all the love letters that you get from your fans.
And I'm very grateful for those. They're very kind. And, I think it's also the thing of knowing that having also like known me before any sort of success and being just very much the safe space that you come home to, it, especially when your line of work, and I've tried so hard, and I know, this game, which is, you get the pilot and that role that you really love. And for once I get to keep my shirt on, and then it doesn't go to series. And you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. And then the next thing that does, you're like, and you're naked in it. I'm like, come on, man. Can I play a sexless character? But yeah. But again, these are all great problems to have. So
was it love at first sight? And when it comes to relationships and the topic of love, a lot of people that I meet, they ask, or who I talk to, the topic of looks comes up where people will say, well, I don't look like so-and-so, so why would anyone like me? And, I always just revert to, I always say, what is your favorite movie? And whenever they say like whatever character is their favorite movie, I say, did you fall in love with that character because of the way they looked, or did you fall in love with them for what their dream was, what the challenges that they overcame in pursuing that dream? And we fall in love with people for who they are, what they overcome, and what they want to create in life. What is it about your wife that attracted you to her?
Yeah, what was great was both having the sort of a previous history. Like we always say that, we met on such and such date, but in reality, we knew each other 3 years prior, So I've known her for now going on, I guess, almost 15 years. But it was because I was not searching for it. It was because I was coming out of a relationship at that time, like sort of, and was really had my head sort of messed up by it. And she was literally sitting on this back porch at our friend's house. And I'm like, oh my God, hey, Sophia, how's it going? And we just sit down and we start chatting. And because there was no ulterior motive, there was certainly no
pressure, like being on a date.
Yeah. And in fact, she said like, hey, do you want, I just got to LA and I only know, our friend Jeremy and like 2 other people. Would you want to hang out sometime? Where do you live in the city? And at that time we lived very close to each other. And I said, yeah, well, the great thing about being on this TV show that I'm on now, which had just started, was that, sometimes my scenes would all be in one location. And because that was like, Warner Brothers and, then ABC Family, they were all about like, they were a well-oiled machine. So they're like, yeah, we'll just shoot all of Ian's scenes in one day. And so you're like, great, I have like 6 days off. Why don't we hang out and go do something? And we hung out, and it didn't feel. One of my friends talked about this a little while ago, this language that we use to describe love. And people often talk about like, I saw them and sparks flew. Like that's a phrase that's used a lot. Sparks flying usually means that there are 2 objects that are not meant to go together are rubbing up against one another and creating so much friction that it's causing flames. So
and someone is going to blow up.
Right. And thank God there's not any oil around, because it isn't a Bruce Willis movie. But so with her, it just felt like click. It just felt, oh, there you are. This makes sense. And
easy.
The
description that I always that I heard that I always like to refer to is it's as easy as breathing. It just feels 100%. Natural.
Right. And this is also, not to say that especially being now, I guess we got together in 2010, it's 2022, it's going to be 12 years in August, like to say that there were no, issues at all. Like that's, you don't go over a decade and have not a single hard discussion, you know? But I think it's the desire to work with the person and to smooth things out and to really connect and to really believe at all times that we are on the same team. And there's no, I need to win this fight. There's no trickery or manipulation.
Mhm.
There's honesty to the point of like, I mean, some of the, I've had this discussion with a couple of other, members of the business. And I said, oh yeah, my wife and I were talking about blah, blah, blah the other night. And they were like, sorry, you talked, that's what you guys talk about? I was like, often, all the time. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. Like,
Well,
how
like
does that?
pillows and toilet paper and just
All the
normal-
time. And we're at a stage now where one of us could be sitting on this is too much information, but fuck it, here we are. Like one of us will be on the can and the other's brushing the teeth, and we'll be like talking about the day, and it's not that there aren't two bathrooms. Like we just want to be together, and
That's
so
amazing. Yeah.
And when you have that level of intimacy and still like want to have fun and everything, then I think that's kind of,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of it.
Do you think it's important that two people in a relationship have a goal in mind for where they see the relationship going, or is it just you just enjoy being in the present moment with her and it doesn't matter what happens in the future?
Oh man, that's such a great question, and I really want to hear your response on this too, because what we have sort of seen is what can lead to a lot of stress and anxiety and comparison. I think in some ways kind of the root of all evil is like saying that either this is where we need to be, or this person has it down, or this couple is the best, or all that other kind of nonsense. I would say we have just boiled our lives down to sort of brass tacks. Like, what are the things that we need to do, or what's the minimum, and how do we do those things every day or every week? Like I my manager and agents probably kill me for this, but like, I just like working. As long as I am able to act and challenge myself and do something, I've even found challenges and like I don't need to do like a Steven Spielberg film as much as I would love to do one, but like, sometimes when you get bad dialogue, there's like a sick part of me that kind of loves it.
Yeah.
Because you have to make it work.
Yeah. Same.
And
that's
as
why I was
long
on soap opera for as long as I was.
Right. You're like, I can make this and here we are. Like clearly you can bring it to life even when you're like, oh, humans don't speak this way, But the with she and I, it's like, is she able to create every week? Am I able to do this thing? Are we able to have a happy and healthy home? Like that's what we're just about kind of repeating that. Sure, there are, places down the road that we would like to get to, but for the most part, our goals are something that are, I guess, to simplify it, our goals are something that are continuously attainable. That it's not, well, if I'm not at this place by this time,
I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah. So is that something that you have found in your own life? The sort of,
I think it's important to have mutual goals on where you see the relationship going, because you may be incredibly attracted to someone physically, but unless you have shared values of where you see the relationship going and also things in common, it's going to fizzle out at one point or another. And I think a lot of the reason why marriages and relationships fail is because I think too many couples don't talk about what their future goals are for the relationship, why they are together. And my mom always gave a really great piece of advice. She was a therapist, and she said, there's the two people in the relationship, and it's important that you love each other and do things for each other. But then there's the relationship is a thing in and of itself.
Yes.
And that the both of you should be working to water that relationship or feed that relationship. So it's not just what you're doing for each other, it's what are you doing for the relationship to further the goals. And I mean, much like if you were to look at your career, and
Right,
where
right.
you see yourself 5 years from now in your career, 10 years from now, and really thinking about and talking about where you see each other. Not that you have to have it all planned out perfectly,
Right.
but like kids, and talking about like, well, what if we don't have money 10 years from now? Is
Yeah.
that going to be okay with you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, those kinds of questions, I think if more people ask those kinds of questions, I think more people would really get to know each other for who they are. And I think people are afraid to admit what their real feelings are for fear
Mm.
that if they do authentically share who they really are, that the person is going to leave and
Yeah,
won't be
man,
able to share
it's so true. And I should, I suppose, add to my previous comment in that we definitely talk about, okay, I would like to maybe within the next 5 years be at this place, or in some cases it's quite literally a certain location. Like one of the reasons we're on the East Coast now is because as much as I'm sorry, my dog's shaking himself.
it.
Is the boon of these, online stuff. Um, uh, but the like, okay, I really love LA, but I can't see myself being here
Mhm.
for X amount of time. My family's all on the East Coast, and I'd like to do this, that, and the other thing. This is something you want to do, and like what's been really great is like we're going to set a time limit. We're going to give it X number of years or a year or something, and we're just going to go and give it a shot.
Mhm.
And we'll adapt and sort of grow with it accordingly. And I think some of it is just having like a loose, like a skeleton, if you will, of something.
Right.
And then life will just decide. And especially as actors, as there's like, oh, so next month we're going to be
In Zimbabwe, like
yeah,
literally, like
yeah. This happened, for this last job that I had for this show, Long Slow Exhale, which is, I think it's right now slated to come out in April at some point. I it was I had been auditioning like a fiend, and also the whole self-tape thing was fully in it was fully happening because
Mhm.
there are no more audition rooms, there are no more like real meetings.
Right.
And so I just been doing those and no feedback. And I'm like, oh my God, wow, I must really suck. And just never
Yeah,
knew.
man.
Um,
Yeah, it's like I continually put myself on tape, and it's like I might as well just be sending it off into the atmosphere because I don't know where the hell it goes. Like
truly.
there's nothing. And it's like,
Yeah.
can I get any sort of feedback? And it makes it really tough to know if you're progressing, if you're um, learning, or if
Yes.
there's anything that you could be doing different to grow. And that's why I think it's so important to continually stay connected, especially as actors, to stay connected in acting class and to
Yeah.
keep feeding into things that inspire you, that fill you up with the
Yeah.
reason why you do this. Because if you constantly, at least from my experience, waiting for that feedback and that validation from casting directors or whatever,
Mhm.
you're going to be miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you need friction. You need, as much as I love I was talking a moment ago about like, no, friction's a terrible thing with relationships and sparks and blah, 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 or some analogy, whatever I said. But no, you need somebody to you know to push back on what you thought was really good. And honestly, um I definitely discovered that in the as much as I miss casting rooms, because in
Mhm.
some way, like when you have an audience, there's something, that magic that happens, not to mention you get immediate feedback.
Yeah.
And
There's that physical energy in the room that you can
right,
feel.
right, but I was grateful for the sort of move to self tapes, because I learned that I had a crutch, which is that I could go into a room, and especially if you get to a certain stage and like you're going like straight to producers or something, which is always
Mhm.
like a blessing to be in that place. I'm able to, I mean, I certainly never do this, but like I'm able to shuck and jive and read the room.
Yeah.
And and you realize like, oh, I didn't really do any sort of like character work. I just
Mm.
had like a vague idea, and then I went and I entertained them.
Charmed him, and yep.
And now you can't do that. If you do not have it, it is
Yeah.
real obvious, real quick. And
Yeah.
so that has been, as you know, much as it like hurts to feel like a hack, sometimes you need to feel it because you need to update your game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So speaking of just the challenges of doing audition after audition after audition,
Yeah.
just if we could go back a little bit, was acting something that you always wanted to do? I know you're from Germany, and I believe you moved to, was it, you came to go to school in Carnegie Mellon?
Oh no.
Or
So
were you in the States before that?
I was in the States. Yeah. So
Because I was
both
going
my-
to say your English accent is perfect.
it's like, wow, you don't even sound, yeah. And unfortunately, this is this was the issue with Wikipedia and both, and also my passport is, you know, it says like, you know, born, you know, from Heidelberg, Germany, and born in Deutschland, which is true. But both my parents were in the U.S. military and were stationed there, and we were only there for 4 years. And then, and so every time I like also enter, because I'm in Germany with some frequency because I have friends there, and I love the place. But you know, every time I go through customs, the German, you know, border patrol, I suppose, person like looks at my passport and looks at me, and just a whole 8 sentences of German, and I just have to look at him like, I'm so sorry, you know, or I answer back with like, "Es tut mir leid, ich mein Deutsch ist sehr schlecht," and he, they usually like, okay, stop, please. That's oof, please don't butcher the language. But I came to the States when I was, you know, about like 3 or 4.
Okay.
And I moved to right outside DC, again, continuing on the, you know, military, parents working for the federal government theme. And, you know, I lived in Virginia, and I was, you know, just went to sort of the regular public schools there, and then got a feel for acting in high school, because I went to a school where like my sport that I did growing up was soccer. And when I got to this high school, I learned, to my dismay, that I was not good at soccer, and or certainly not good enough for, you know, for that team. And so I realized that I could do the plays, because it was an all boys high school, and yet the girls' schools would come in, and we also had like a beautiful, again, private school, so we had this amazing theater. And I figured, you know, I had done some choir and church, and, you know, as a child, so let me just see if I could do the musicals. And I was instantly hooked. I started caring less about, you know, my female compatriots, and more about, you know, trying to get as good as I could. And I realized
what did you love about it?
I loved that, you know, I think it was that, get ready for pretentious ground here. I loved, I can't even say this with a straight face. I love that sort of flow state that you get into, where you get, and this is the great thing about doing high school theater, is depending on, you know, the regulations of the school or whatnot, you can do amazing plays as, you know, essentially a child. And if you are connected to, if you even know what being connected to the text means, and you just get into the scene, and especially if you have the double magic, though obviously increasingly rare, good fortune of being with another actor on stage, that you just kind of like get.
Okay, so what are you, like 16 at this point?
16,
dude, like when I was in high school, there was like this stigma. It was, if you didn't play football, if you didn't play like sports, then you weren't like a dude, and it was like anyone who did theater, there was like sort of like, well, they were just kind of different. And so honestly, I just was like, well, I don't want to subject myself to the ridicule. And
Yeah.
I don't know what it was about my high school where there was like, I think there's this machismo type of mentality, especially in the United States, that if
Oh,
you don't
totally.
play
Yeah.
football or if you don't play these sports. And so we as young men grow up. I mean, you knew it, and I guess maybe it wasn't as prevalent for you, but the messaging is, man, we got to be strong. We got to play, we got to be tough. And like that theater stuff is for sissies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I missed out on a lot of stuff where I may have completely ended up going and doing another profession if it wasn't for, fortunately, me landing in New York City.
Yeah.
And I ended up in an acting class at 24 years old. And I was like,
Damn.
holy
Oh,
shit,
wow.
this is what I've been missing. This is amazing. So
Yeah.
you never had that type of
yeah, I'm so happy you said that, because I also, I suppose for the sake of not wanting to like just talk about myself this whole time, although I realize like it's a little coffee with Colin. I'm here to talk about that myself, but like, I'm happy that you shared your experience, because I did have that. And especially like freshman and sophomore year, you didn't do sports, and it was, the numerous slurs that I'm not going to repeat here, but, that I got, especially because it was an all boys school. But I think and this was really amazing to see, was that this is not always the case anywhere, but I was very lucky with that school in that if you were really good at it, or if you tried really hard, and if you brought something to it, people respected you for it. Like, for instance, I started out my sophomore and, my freshman and sophomore year, like a lot of, I don't know how many of my classmates, but a lot of them had come up through like private elementary and middle school together. And I was this rando from Virginia that came in. And the only reason I went was because my aunt had taught there since the place opened in, 1789. She would hate that I said that. But so I didn't really know anybody. And on top of that, I'm like, I want to put makeup on and dance. And they were like,
right? Like,
whoa, man. And by the end of that time, I was the speaker at our graduation. And it wasn't for grades, because I can, to this day, barely add. So, and I had a math teacher there. I was like, oh my God, Ian, I don't understand what's happening here. I think you really need like some sort of help, because it's alarming how much you can't do simple math. But it was because maybe there were a ton of reasons, but like I really loved what I did, and was reasonably good at it. I'm going to look at those tapes right now and like, immediately take back everything I've said. Like, no, this kid's terrible. But like, I think I was lucky at that school, but it was also small enough. There was only about like, in my class, I think there were maybe like 80 or 90 guys. And if you were able to, stick to something and prove that you were relatively good at it, there was some respect, and so, and it helped that like a lot of these guys came, like my senior year, there were several guys from the various sports teams that like auditioned for the play, and they called it like trying out. Like, again, it was like, guys, this isn't lacrosse practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
this is an audition.
Yeah.
And I did this hand gesture too. But so was that, was your experience one of like, were you truly like concerned for your well-being? Because I knew I was never going to get beat up, because nobody wanted to get in a fight and then get expelled and go to public school because they were all bougie jerks. But, what was your experience?
Yeah. I think typical high school experience where you're just trying to discover who you are and where you fit in. And, I guess I just wasn't, I was consider myself a late bloomer. There was always some of the kids that seemed like they had it all figured out, and the quarterback of the football team was like the popular guy with the head of the cheerleader, squad and stuff. And for me, I guess I was just more introspective growing up, and I was good at art. I like to draw.
Yeah.
I like to paint. Yeah, I guess, I did like to play sports. It was something that I felt like it was something that connected me to other people, and it made me start to feel like I had a sense of confidence about myself because I was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of getting up on a stage and exposing myself to the feelings and emotions of a character, like I'm like at 16, 17, I'm just like, like as young men, especially where we're not encouraged to really talk about our feelings or our emotions. To me, that would just have been like too vulnerable, too nerve-wracking, exposing myself for too much criticism. So I give you a lot of credit for discovering something that you were passionate about and just going for it.
Well, thank you for that. Two things. One, I had great parents, and thankfully my dad, even though, was in the military and all that, was very much wanting me to go and do plays. And he grew up in Southern California, was a total hippie, and then joined the Army, I think by like mistake. But there was, also this sort of, karma gets you at some point. And I was so lucky to be in that place at my high school where I felt like, I really have it. I really own it. And I know who I am. And then I went to Carnegie Mellon, and they destroy you. It was great to be in a class full of talented people, so much so that you realize I might be the worst one here. Like I might actually be trying to also avoid this lamp here. Like I might be the worst actor here. And there were a lot of moments when I would get up and do a monologue in class, and there's that silence, and it's not because it was good. Like you look up and you feel like you left your heart on the floor. You're breathing heavy and you're ready for the applause. And people are like looking at their notebook, and you're like, oh shit, that's terrible.
Well, it's great preparation for a real Hollywood audition.
Can I ask, do you have like a worst audition? Do you have one? Like, I love hearing these stories from other actors, like, or not even worst auditions, but one that you you can't make it up. Like,
how much time do you have, Ian?
All the time in the world.
So when I first started studying acting, and I started going on some auditions in New York City, I didn't realize the do's and the don'ts of auditioning. And this role I was auditioning for was to play a waiter in a New York City restaurant. And in one of the scenes, I'm going through the set of double doors, in the restaurant. And of course, everything, you're in a small little casting office. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to make this as realistic as possible. My character has to go through these double doors, and I run into another waiter with a whole tray, and all the dishes and everything get thrown at me, and spaghetti ends up on top of my head. And I'm finishing the scene, of course, talking to this girl, that one of the other waitresses that I'm in love with. And of course, I'm sitting there with spaghetti on my head. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to boil some spaghetti noodles, and I'm going to make this like a real thing. So I brought a bag of spaghetti noodles into the audition with me. And before I was about to do the audition, I started opening the bag, and the casting director was like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, well, this is just for the scene. Yeah. And she goes, yeah, don't do that. So, I mean, immediately right away, I was like, oh shit. And so I started, it's like, as soon as you get in your head about something, you're done. I mean, everything from that to going to use the bathroom before the audition, and then going to wash my hands and splashing water on my pants, so it looked like I wet my pants. And so I'm sitting there in the bathroom with the blow dryer, like rubbing my crotch, trying to like dry my crotch before I'm like going into the room, auditioning in front of like 10 people, and so worried about people seeing wet stain on my pants that I like completely blew the audition, or forgetting a line, at a studio audition at CBS Radford in front of like 40 network executives.
Yes.
I mean, you name it. I mean, it's happened.
This is, Oh God, this is so good to hear. Not that sounds terrible. That like one of the most painful moments of your life. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy that that happened to you. But like it's great to, because every this is also one of the reasons I love just sort of talking with actors is that they you have these conversations about like what's the worst audition that you've had,
Yeah.
and what's like a low
So please
moment.
do tell Ian so I
Well,
don't feel
I
so bad.
I've had definitely the ones where um I've made up lines that weren't there. I had this is not this doesn't necessarily um I'm trying to think like because there's one that I could tell, but then it's very obvious about what the thing is, and I don't want to burn that bridge. The one that really like sticks in my mind is I had like this callback, and it might have even been like a studio test or something. It was for this horror film that thankfully like never saw the light of day. Um, but I was really excited about it. And in it, like something has happened, and like there's something where maybe the house was like alive or something, and my girlfriend and my brother are in this room, and the house like incinerates them or something. So pretty grim. And I'm supposed to, and I have this moment where he sobs and he breaks down because his girlfriend and his wife his brother was just eaten by a house. Sure.
Of course.
Naturally, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and it was in the actual audition took place in basically like a corporate office, like one of those in like, I think it might have been at the Fox lot, but it was in like one of those sort of corporate buildings. And so you've got these like nasty ass halogen bulbs over,
Oh,
and it feels as though some assistant to the casting director went to like a yard sale for like a you know um, mid-century modern house or like an estate sale or something, and they got all this random ass furniture. And the only reason I talk about that specifically is because there was a lamp. There was sort of this geometric shape, and so it had flat like mirrored surfaces,
mhm.
and it was right above one of the producers who was sitting right in front of me, sitting on a couch, and the lamp was like pretty much like here-ish.
Okay.
And he has his leg crossed and he has something in his lap, which I was assuming like was a iPad with my headshot on it or something like that. Or maybe he's looking through the resume or the script. Or again, I'm not sure who this man is, but he's important. And and I'm going through this moment where I'm like, snot is flying. And I am so proud of myself. Like, I got there. And then actually I think back on it. I'm like, it's far too much. But like, I just wanted to prove that I had it. And I look up and like just happened to be like right in my eye line. I think I'm saying the line like, they're all dead. And like as I see it, I see off the reflection that he's playing Angry Birds.
Oh no shit.
And I was like, oh, you know what? This might be something the character would do because he was also kind of gutsy. And I said in the audition room, I was like, excuse me, sir, I'll wait for you to be done.
No.
And the guy goes, oh, you're done. Thank you so much.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, like he was so unrepentant and for his Angry Birds. And I felt like I'll stand up for myself. And it was another reminder that if you're not paying for this movie, you're not in charge.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah, a lot of humbling experiences like that. In your career, what would you say that because I do like to talk about like having a goal and a dream, and what were some of the most difficult things that you had to overcome in pursuing and getting to where you're at in your career?
Oh man, that's such a great question because I have the goal of being able to like be in my deathbed and say, oh, I had a successful career as an actor. And to me, that is having worked pretty much up until that point to where they said like, you can't work anymore. Like you can't memorize your lines and like, you don't have eyes anymore or something. I don't know. But I did work that was challenging, that I found fulfilling, that I was excited by. I traveled the world. I was able to feed and clothe my family while, emoting on screen. But that would be an ultimate goal of mine. But I think the challenges that have thus faced me, it's odd because it's kind of reversed. As in, pretty little, like I graduated from CMU and I came out to LA, and the first pilot audition that I had in Los Angeles was Pretty Little Liars.
Oh, wow.
And again,
did you have an agent at the time?
I did. I was very lucky in that, CMU has like a showcase program, and I was, again, by pure luck, I was doing this play at CMU that was all movement based. Like it's like one of those very new agey sort of things that didn't really make sense. And
you're an amoeba.
Yes, it was. We were trying to show like, how capitalist greed like crushes the little man, which again I can get on board with. But why are we all naked? And so we were also. I was in amazing shape, and this was also a quick tangent. The same play, my own mother came to see like a rehearsal of it, and then went and then decided, she was like, "Look, I'm so sorry. I'm going to go see your roommate John Michael's play, which was Into the Woods." And I was not in that. And I was like, "But you don't want to see your son?" She was like, "No, I would rather see this thing." I don't know what your bullshit's about.
Yeah, I've seen you too much.
Yeah, it's like I gave birth to you.
Yeah.
But because I was in this great shape, and then I went to showcase, and they were like, "Oh, he's like a relatively good looking guy. Let's send him out for all these, parts where he just needs to show up like in a wet t-shirt or something." I don't know. And I got very lucky, and I got Pretty Little Liars, and then shot the pilot, wasn't fired from the pilot. Then I went to, the front 10 back when, seasons were 20 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got picked up for 20 episodes, and then it was a hit. And then boom, 7 years. But I never had that point, or I never had that sort of experience of an actor of like auditioning, getting the pilot that doesn't go, getting the movie that you then get cut out of, getting any number of things, or getting what you think is that break, what you think is that thing that really changes the game, and then having it taken away from you. And so I'm sort of having a career that's in reverse, which is ever since Pretty Little Liars ended, that pendulum has swung in the opposite direction, which is, and I want to, be clear, I'm insanely grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have had the best disappointments, where I did this pilot a couple of years ago, where it was literally like, I was sitting at Video Village, and it was me, Lee Daniels, Lisa Kudrow, and Whitney Cummings all like hanging out, and they look at me and they're like, "What do you think we should do with this scene, Ian?"
Wow.
What?
Wait, who, me?
Me? I was like the seventh lead on a cable show. Like, and you're asking me, Lee Daniels, and then that went away for various like corporate business reasons, and then the pandemic came, and it just and so I am very grateful for those experiences, because it does give you a seasoning, and like you can see it. Like, and I'm sure you've worked with like younger actors that have just kind of like been very lucky. Like they haven't had, they haven't had somebody tell them they're too old. They haven't had the, losing out on a part because you look too much like the casting director's ex-husband, and which I've gotten like a couple of times and I'm a little alarmed by, but, so it's good. It sucks.
Yeah.
But it's good. And I mean, it's been the same thing for you, I imagine. Like I feel like you have shown, like you've shown up in everything. And yet there are times when I'm sure that you feel like, am I a joke? Like, just how do you grapple with that? How do you weather that?
From my experience and just talking to other actors, man, a lot of it is just keep showing up. Keep showing up. And if you love what you do, it's going to show. And one of the reasons why I did leave Hollywood 3 years ago, because I now live in Chicago, because my
Oh, I love
auditioning.
Chicago. Sorry.
Love Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I started going into my auditions with this. I was getting bitter about the process, and my joy for acting just wasn't there anymore. And I think once you reach a certain level of, in your career, whether it's acting or anything, and you find it hard to maintain that level, anything less than that, I was frustrated that I knew I wanted to get back up to that level. And I knew, like, all right, I've done these movies and these TV shows with these caliber of talent and production. And so, I'm sure you've heard the old adage, the easy part is getting to the top. The hard part is staying there.
Yeah.
And so it was, I started to study and I started getting some, relatively, I started to achieve a relative modicum of success early on in my career. And it just, it slowly started to build on top of each other. And I was like, all right, this is actually growing. And there was, some 3-year periods where nothing was really happening, but I loved going to acting class. I loved learning. I loved the process. And the more that I kept playing in that space of not being attached to getting the jobs just came. And later on in my career, after I got to a certain place where I was like, all right, I'm going to go into this job. I got this one. And I felt like I nailed the audition, did a great job, and yet didn't get it. And then it didn't get it, didn't get it. And then after a certain point, I started questioning whether or not I just wanted to keep auditioning and keep hearing no. And I think what was holding me back was I feel like I started to just get bitter. I started getting bitter about seeing other actors get the parts that I had auditioned for and felt like, well, why didn't they pick me? And then I, get into that negative space of doubting myself. And so I had to really take a really hard look at where I was at. And honestly, for a good 20 years, I was going nonstop. And as actors, you can get to this point where you become singularly focused on one goal. And that was to get the job at the expense of relationships, life, family, missing out on nephews and nieces' birthdays. And I just decided, you know what? I think I need to just take a step back, push the reset button, go live life. Get out of this kind of one track, I mean, LA is great, but it is, it's singular,
one track,
pretty much singularly focused on entertainment. And I just got tired of going out and every time just even going to an Irish pub, like Dublin's up on Sunset, it was, I wrote a script, could you introduce me to, I love that place. And just being like, I wrote the script and, anytime anyone would ask you, how are you doing? It was all, well, I had this audition and it sucked. No, I didn't ask about your auditioning. I asked how you were. And I felt like every time I came back to Chicago back here, I just felt filled up with just, my peeps. And I think it's so important to find your tribe, to surround yourself with people who see you for who you really are, not just because of what you've done or what you can do for them. And I think Hollywood, there is a lot of that angling where who is this person? How can they help me get to that next place in my career? And I just took a break, came back here 3 years ago. And it's one of the most amazing things that has ever happened to me, because it was a difficult decision to leave. Because in a way I thought, like, in some sense I was giving up on my dream, but I just kept reminding myself, you know what, I need to just step back and see if I miss it. See if it's something that I still loved and see if it was something that would come back around. And sure enough, as soon as I left, I couldn't get arrested in Hollywood those, last year and a half that I was there. Come back here, booked an independent film within 2 weeks of moving back here, then booked a role on Chicago Fire. And then I ended up meeting a woman who was like, hey, you want to write a book? And I was like, how do you do that? I don't know how to write a book. And it was one of these things where I knew I needed to listen to my heart. I knew I needed to listen to my instincts, and something was just calling me back here. And I think you can't go wrong when you listen to your heart, when you listen to your instincts, even if your mind is telling you, no, dude, you work this hard and da 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 da. And I was like, all right, I need to just get reconnected back down here. And the best experience for me, because now that I've been away for it enough, I've started to discover a whole new world where I now teach acting, which I absolutely love.
Yes. Yeah.
I teach these Inspire courses, and I just do a lot of, I'm really into just, Tony Robbins and all this amazing, great stuff that has really started to reinvigorate my passion for life and my career. And so all around, it has just been an amazing experience. And it makes me now realize that, yes, I still love acting. It's still something that I really want to do. And I knew that I need to take a little bit more control of my career instead of going into these rooms and expecting people to pick me for their projects.
Yes.
How can I start to create my own projects to be able to still continue to do what I love to do, which leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
Because you've started to do some of this on your own. You've written your own book, and you produced your own, essentially how would you describe it? Is it like a
the nature documentary? Yeah, if we're talking about Feral, this thing that is out on Discovery Plus, plug. But it was something that I was always interested in because I've always been interested in birds. But before I get there, and I know we might be running out of time, so I'll make this quick. But I really want to punch home the point that I really think that you're making, which is this is everywhere. So I think this applies to everybody, especially people that are maybe watching right now that are not actors, but just there's this concept of hustle, and it's very American, and it feels like it's on steroids in Los Angeles, which is like the stuff that you see, like the hashtag no days off, like that stupid shit. I mean, it makes me fear. And there's part of me that
badge of honor.
When you see these people's and these influencers talking about I don't sleep, and then you see in the tabloids their life is in shambles. There's a bit of me that is a little bit gleeful about it. Not I don't want them to, I think there's a part of me that's because it's a sham. And workaholism is the only addiction that we support as a country. Nobody's like, hey, you know what I'm going to do this weekend? A ton of meth. Everybody says, for the most part, you shouldn't do that, But if you say hey, guess what? I'm not going to really see my family because I'm going to work 20-hour days. People are like, whoa, cool down, man. But I really, support the hustle. And I think it is dangerous. It's toxic. It's also, you don't actually need to hustle that much. I think there's this, if we had another 2 hours here, I could, this is something that I'm very interested in. And also one of the reasons I'm in Connecticut right now, because I cannot surround myself in this LA. I don't want to say cesspool, although that's the word that came in my mind, where it's just the constant, I need to be on all the time. And I think that makes you very boring. And all of the actors that I have always looked up to, somebody that I love is Viggo Mortensen. He has his own printing press. He goes, he goes around the world doing he is just a fully rounded person that also acts. Or I respect those sort of character actors. I'm blanking on his actual name, but he was the dad in Frasier, and he was a Chicago actor.
Oh yeah, John Mahoney.
Yeah. And how his whole thing was basically he did Frasier practically to fund his theater addiction, And that to me, I almost get teary-eyed thinking about it. I would love that.
Yeah.
If you did TV to as TV is a great income, and especially now you get these shorter episode orders, and you could do 5 months of work and the next 2 years are funded for you, and then to go and do a play that maybe no one will see, but you feel fulfilled by it. That is a dream of mine. My dream is to not be, or my dream isn't to be this top A-list, I got 3 assistants and I never see my kids, that's sounds like a nightmare. It sounds like psychosis.
So was the reason you left to go to Connecticut was that just for personal reasons? You just want to get out of LA for a little bit, or?
Yeah, I wanted to not be surrounded by the business. I wanted
Yeah.
to see some trees that hopefully won't burn in the next 10 years. There's a lot. I don't mean to crap on LA. I think it is a really amazing city, and there's a lot of culture there that is completely apart from the entertainment industry.
Mhm.
And I have a bunch of friends that I did find my tribe in LA. The issue is
Mhm.
that they were in LA, so, and I'm trying to convince them all to move here. But, I have also needed a little bit of like, I'm starting to get this like hustle mentality, and
Mhm.
it's making me look at people as like a means to an end as
Yeah.
opposed to a person.
Yep.
All the stuff that we've talked about ad nauseum, but I started to move away from that a little bit when a couple of years ago, writing this book, that is literally, it's about bird watching. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm trying to be as unsexy as possible, that's step number one. But it was this passion that I had that was so meaningful, especially at a time of like heightened fame and scrutiny and
Yeah.
like feeling very disconnected from reality, because you meet people that like, you go to like a restaurant and people, like leave you their number while you're also sitting across from your wife. Like, it's just it's
And they're
gross.
like,
And yeah. And I'm like, oh, so subtle,
yeah.
But this like hobby that I had of going birding was basically, it is a physical embodiment of being present.
Mm.
Yes, you can pull out your phone and try and like, make a call or something so that, you attract their attention or whatnot. But for the most part, you just need to be outside and just present. And if you can do that, it's amazing what you can see. And so I wrote a book about it, and there were people at the time who were like, okay, wait a minute, hang on. This is a joke, right? And I was like, no, this is
No, I
dead
really.
serious. Like,
So you literally just walk through a forest knowing that these type of species of bird are going to be there. And so you just like, do you kind of sit and hide behind a tree and wait till you see, like, how do you actually bird watch? Like,
there's all kinds of things. And actually, I'm going to probably early next week. I don't know if it's still going to be there, but often if you go to like, if you follow any of like the websites, the chat rooms or whatnot, which just sounds like a recipe for disaster right there. But there I'm trying to tell two stories at once. Okay. Right now on the coast of Maine, there's something called a Steller sea eagle. I saw one in captivity. That does not count. But it is a gigantic eagle, and they are native to like the seas around Asia and Russia. They're not from around here, but for some reason, this son of a bitch is in Maine. So you go and like you see them, and in some ways, the thing that I love about it is, yes, you get to see this majestic wildlife, and you get to see something and that like is out of context, but for the most part, it's an adventure that you have. If I go down to, let's say, High Island, it's along the Texas Gulf Coast. You travel through Galveston, which is just this interesting little town. This town that was supposed to be like a commercial mecca at one point, and then it just completely bottomed out, and you don't know why. And there's all sorts of there's like these weird, funky graveyards. So it's almost after a while, like it's not about the bird anymore. It's about the experience that you have. And so sometimes, yeah, it's very much about the bird. You go and freeze your ass off on the coast of Maine to see an eagle that's, twice the size of a bald eagle. Like, that's pretty cool. It looks like a fake bird because it's so huge. But for me, it was very grounding. And for some reason, it just took my manic focus off of the industry and career and me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've tried to write a book about how do you balance that? How do you, like me trying to escape, like skipping a premiere to go, see a Arctic loon, but
People are like, you are fucking crazy. Like, what have you lost your mind?
Yeah, I also just sent coffee up my nose. That's great. We can't edit this out, I take it.
Well, dude, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, and I probably will have to have you back here. But real quick, I just have some questions that some of my audience members have for us here.
Yeah.
Sharon Kalma wants to know, other than your book, what book is your favorite that you would recommend to read?
Anything written by the host of this podcast.
Ah.
But also, oh man, there are a bunch that, again, if we had another hour, I feel like maybe that's the next one. Maybe the next time I come on, we just talk about books.
Okay.
But I'm a big fan of I think if we're talking about this podcast, obviously it has to do a lot with like inspiration, and I think somebody that has really helped me is Ryan Holiday, who has distilled a lot of like Stoic philosophy into very sort of modern and tangible bits of advice, and I've loved. He has a book called The Obstacle Is the Way that I really adored. I read a ton during the pandemic, clearly because it's all the time in the world. There was a Little Life, who's the author that I'm blanking on that person's name, unfortunately. I really love, who I think you should absolutely have on this podcast, and who I think is right up the sort of having other things to do as opposed to being in the industry, is Nick Offerman. I'm reading his most current book, which I thought was going to be, again, sort of like one of these Hollywoody, like back, when I was super famous and now I'm just more famous, like I thought it was going to be one of those, but it's a very thoughtful and entertaining book.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, definitely have to check him out. And Miriam, if you're listening, get a hold of Nick Offerman.
Yeah.
Are you spiritual?
Am I spiritual? I think a little bit. Yeah. I think for a while I was very anti everything. I think, when you're raised Irish Catholic and you don't address.
Oh, you too.
Right. You don't deserve anything, and Jesus died
guilty
because of
for
you.
just living. Sorry.
You walk into a room and you're right. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
If something is wrong here, I should feel guilty about it. Which again is, I'm coming to discover, my aunt is like a theologian, and the more that I talk to her, she's like, I don't know where you learned that, because that ideally is not the gist of it, but if spirituality means removing yourself from the center of the universe and being open to the intangible while not being duped by just mere superstition, then I am spiritual. My wife and I do everything from like reading Psalms to pulling tarot cards and taking it all sort of with a grain of salt. I think at no point do we pull a tarot card and we're like, this is the truth. This is, the future. Sometimes it's, how do we feel about this? Does this register? Nah, it doesn't. Okay, cool. We'll put that on the bottom of the pile,
Yeah.
So I'm kind of ish.
Yeah. Yep. Similarly, I feel like, don't get me started, but I've got my opinions about institutionalized religion and how it can, if taught the wrong way, or if preached about in a way that makes you feel less than, which a lot of the times that can be the case. I try to look at spirituality from a place of God, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is it's not some dude sitting up on a cloud, like deciding who gets what. I believe it's more so that is here in within each and every one of us. And I think when we connect to that spiritual place that resides, I think, within each and every one of us. I believe, without getting too woo-woo here, I believe we're spiritual beings having a physical experience on this planet for the short amount of time that we are here. And I think it behooves us to make the most of that and spread as much connection and abundance and love and joy while we are here. And I think a lot of the times institutionalized religions has prevented that from being the case. Not all the time, but and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I think my philosophy is more in line with what you mentioned, where I kind of like look at Buddhism and look at all these different types of religions out there and see, like, you know what, this resonates, this doesn't, and I think whatever we can do to use to get us through the day, to help us feel connected to that grander version of ourselves. I think that is I think that's the most useful thing how we can look at it.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. But again, I think we could continue this on for a lot longer. But as we wrap up here, I just want to say thank you for being here, Ian. Want to wrap up with asking you these little few questions about your favorite movies, if I could.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite movie of all time?
You know, I got these questions a little while ago, and I was like, oh man, this is tough, because my favorite movie of all time, oh God, there are like 5, but to boil it down, favorite movie of all time, I do think Saving Private Ryan might be my favorite, or honestly, anything that Tom Hanks is in. He's my guy. Like, I just think he's a national treasure. Yeah. So maybe that or Forrest Gump. I don't know. It's all over the place.
Awesome. What was your favorite movie growing up?
Favorite movie growing up? Anything Robin Williams was in. We actually just watched, because it was a snow day in New York recently, where we were staying at the moment, and my wife, whenever there was like a snow day for her, or there was a day off, she grew up in Miami, so there was never a snow day. But if Hook with Robin Williams.
Okay.
I mean, I'd forgotten, and we watched it again. I was like, I forgot.
Never actually seen it.
What?
I have not. No, I haven't seen it.
Let me preface this. There are some things that have not aged well. And you can go like, oh, cool, this would not be in movies today. But like, and rightfully so. But again, Robin Williams can do no wrong. But
if you guys who are here have seen Hook, please write in the chat, right? Yes. I want to see how many people who are here actually have seen the movie Hook. And if you haven't, I guess we are all watching Hook this week. What is your favorite movie that, what would you say is your favorite comedy?
Favorite comedy?
Yes.
Oh, man. Again, Robin Williams. I think the first one that came to mind, maybe it's somewhere tied between Anchorman, and I know,
amazing. I mean,
it's the commitment to absolutely a stupid premise that I just like love and adore. Although I do love.
By the way, everyone is saying yes, they've seen Hook. I'm the only person here who hasn't seen it. So, Sherry Powell has not seen it. Thank you, Sherry. Awesome.
It is.
Sherry and I have a movie to watch this week. So thanks for the recommendation. Favorite romantic comedy?
Oh, yeah. So I was thinking about this, and I really love You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle. I just recently watched these because I hadn't seen them, and then I watched them as an adult and was absolutely smitten. Although maybe one of my favorite romantic comedies is Beginners, with Ewan McGregor and Christopher Plummer, and I forget the name of the director. Man, I hope somebody in the comments could help me on this, but it's not Mike White. Maybe it's Mike White. No. But Beginners with Ewan McGregor.
Okay.
It's top notch. It's so good.
Great suggestion. We'll have to check it out. Who's your favorite actor? I guess you've already said it. Mr. Hanks. Right?
Yeah. That, or you know what? It's truly tied. I think Denzel Washington, or I have loved Javier Bardem since seeing him in No Country for Old Men, which also might be tied for one of my favorite movies. Like, it was one of those, and I'm sure you have the same experience when you see a movie and you are not thinking about how they shot it. You're not thinking about what the actor's doing. You are truly transfixed. And I was cut to my core with Bardem's experience, or, well, I guess maybe his experience in it. It was illuminating, to say the least.
Awesome. And actors.
I mean, obviously the Meryl Streep and but you know who I absolutely adore, and I really hope to work with, because Carey Mulligan, I think, is really one in a generation type thing. I feel like she has just such a depth and brings everything to a part. And I just think she's top notch. I think she's probably my favorite.
Did you ever see Inside Llewyn Davis?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
I have a movie that, like, I absolutely love, and when I tell people about it, they were either like, God, that movie was depressing, or had never seen it. And it was one that she did with Andrew Garfield and Keira Knightley called Never Let Me Go. And it was based on a Kazuo, I'm butchering this, excuse me, but Kazuo Ishiguro novel. And it's devastating, but fantastic. And she is just not even human in it. She's, it's pretty alarming. It's it's one of those things, sometimes when you watch something and you're like, I will never be this guy. Like, this is, and you just have to accept it. You're like, okay, all right, that's another level. That's up there. And we're here.
Now, hey, you never know. I mean, when it's that right role, it's like catching lightning in a bottle. And dude, it's just been an amazing opportunity and experience to chat with you, and appreciate your time. I know we've kind of gone a little bit later than we said we were going to be, but I was enjoying it so much that I just wanted to keep it going. And before we chime off here, last question, what would you like to share with people out there who are considering getting into acting or pursuing their dream in general, or maybe something you would tell your younger self that you'd like to share?
There are two things. If I could tell my younger self anything, it would be get into every aspect of what you do. Like, I think for so long I was like, I'm not a director, I'm not a writer, I'm not blah, blah, blah. And now I'm only starting to think about that, and I'm in my 30s, and so, which again, you still have time. You really, until the day you stop breathing, you've got time. But I would say that, especially people getting into anything that they're really passionate about, I would think that the thing to bear in mind is it doesn't always feel good. I think there's this little bit of, like, there's that adage that is tossed around a little too easily, which is, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think that is 80% true, in that I do what I love, and it's still a slog sometimes. And that's part of it, just because, you've thrown off the reins of the 9 to 5 and you're pursuing your dream as like a painter or something. It doesn't mean it's not going to suck a lot. Also, this clicking is this old radiator that's sorry, I apologize. Like, sorry, this is the mob that's breaking into my house. It's going to kill me. But so that's what I would say. I mean, it's the idea of, like, sticking with it is too easily said. But
great advice. Definitely great advice. All right, my friend. Great chatting with you. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Would love to link up at some point, and who knows, maybe we'll be playing with each other on set someday
God, I
soon.
hope so.
Put it out there,
Yeah.
manifest it, because
Yeah.
that would be an absolute pleasure.
It'd be a dream. Yeah, thank you for having me, and good night, all the folks in the comment section. Thanks for coming out.
Awesome. Take care, my friend.
Have a good one.
All right, everyone. Awesome interview. I think this is probably our longest interview ever. This is awesome. Again, I think we're just going to have Ian back here because just a wealth of knowledge, as you could tell. I think you enjoyed just how just honest and real and humble he is, and a lot of really great advice. I think one of the things that he said that I really loved the most was having the best disappointments. The best disappointments, meaning, and what I take from that is that even though things may not work out the way that you want them to, that when we look back at those things that maybe in the moment feel like disappointments, they can be something that you can really look back and be like, wow, you know what? That really was an amazing experience. And what could I learn from it? What was great about it? And just talking about knowing that not everything is going to be easy. Not everything that we see on social media, that's not how it really is all the time. And I think sometimes we can naively just be lulled into this sense that everyone is having an amazing life, and that life is, life for us is difficult and it is a struggle. But this is, if it's something that you really care about, if it's something that you really want to do in life, it's going to be hard whether or not it's your dream or not. So you might as well go after the things that you love, that inspire you, and that are going to make a big difference in the world. And when you look back in life, like Ian said, when he's older, he wants to be able to look back and know that what he was doing, that he gave it his all. And man, what an amazing guy. Thank you for sticking around for as long as you guys have. Appreciate it. We will see you guys all back next week. Have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you guys all very soon. Take care for now.